Um, I would like to introduce our eminent speaker who does not need any introduction, Professor Dr. Muhammad Iqbal Choudhary. He's a distinguished national meritorious professor. He's a director at International Center for Chemical and Biological Sciences. And he's among the most prominent scientists of the Pakistan, recognized for his original contribution in the field of natural products and bioorganic chemistry. Professor Saab has been honored with the most prestigious Mustafa Appreciation Prize. He's also been honored with the Civil Award which is Hilal Imtiaz, Sitara Imtiaz, and Tamra Imtiaz by the President of Pakistan and Pakistan Academy of Scientists. He's been authored to numerous publications, books, and his contribution to the science in Pakistan is unmatchable. Sir, thank you so very much for your precious time, and all our participants are really looking forward for your talk. So, sir, I'm going to hand over the mic over to you, and we're all ears to listen for your talk. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, both brilliant, bright girls, mashallah, and the initiative of Qatar University as well as U.S. Alumni Association. My very dear brother, Professor Dr. Habib, I know that you are in a very important meeting in which you are certainly defending projects of your institution for expansion and strengthening. So thank you for taking time from your extremely important meeting. Please do feel free to go back to your meeting, because this is more important. I can always come and present my little submission and my presentation to you as you are absolutely close to our heart. See, I'm also a beneficiary of US system of education, because long time ago, when many of you, and perhaps your parents were not really born, back in 1985, I headed to Pennsylvania State University, and there was a very exciting travel, because I was the recipient of National Science Foundation Fellowship, and then that point on, I was associated with many institutions of US. Initially in Pennsylvania State University, where I completed my PhD research, came back, and then went back for PhD postdoc at Cornell for many years, and then see that went on for quite some time till my last assignment, a longer one, when I was a senior Fulbright fellow at UCSD, University of California, San Diego, at the Scripps Institute. So thank you very much. We all share a lot of important experiences of our life, and certainly are the beneficiary of one of the most thriving, extremely innovative, and a system which certainly encourage innovation, excellence, and creativity. But I'm not going to talk about science today, because science is everywhere, and we all understand science is important. I'm going to talk about science communication. Very often, you see, we think of science in vacuum. We think that science is thriving without a context, and without a support system, and without a society which nurture and value science. This never happened. This has not happened, and this would never happen. So science is as important as communicating science to the people who takes a decision, or who are the constituency of the decision makers. And that is where we find a real failure. But please do believe me that science is not the only thing where communication failure takes place. In fact, everything where creativity, education eventually lead to a group of people who work in their laboratories or in their offices often fail to communicate the importance of their work to the general public. Here is the example of science communication, and perhaps more of a failure in science communication, and what are the implications. We do not really need to remind us that science is extremely important, that science, without science, we have not really lived the life as we live today. Science is everywhere around us, within us, and in future, in past, and in present, and that today the modern world would perhaps not be as modern as we think without science. So whatever we see from daily life, from morning to the evening, are the fruit of human ingenuity in the field of science and technology, and that is everywhere. I don't know how many of us do really realize how important science is, and how many of us who are not scientists per se realize that it is important to support science. And how many of us do really realize that science is not only a subject, but also a way of thinking? It is a culture, it is an ambience, it is a context of a society. So science communication is extremely important, and failure in science communication lead to what we see, the so-called dilemma of the developing world, where we have a lot of creative, young, bright people, but we do not really have ways and means of using their creativity potential, harnessing their creativity, because we do not really understand that science requires support, and support can only come when society is behind science and understand the meaning of it. So let me start by talking about science in the context of what we are today. So society is dependent on science. It is hardly anyone who knows anything about science and technology, despite the fact that science and technology is everywhere. And this is what I'm going to cover in next 20, 30 minutes or so. I'm going to talk about human science and human needs, and that why it is important to connect science with society, because there is a societal component of science. Science is not done for only scientific curiosity, but science is largely done and performed for meeting the societal needs, or understanding the curiosity of nature, which eventually lead to a better understanding of the world we live in. And that we should be able to communicate science to the public in a language which they understand. This gigantic, big words, this language which we have developed in scientific journals, is just completely disconnected to the world, and that we live in our own ghettos, and that we do not really often understand that we need to develop a language, a common language where science and society should really be able to culminate into a better understanding. And then vision of science-based society. And of course, at some stage, I'm going to talk about this losing cultural basis, losing battle of science in Pakistan, and that our failure against pseudoscience, which exists everywhere and which is thriving in this well-knitted social network world. And then right at the end, I'll leave you with a homework of major challenges. So moving forward, I will take you backward. And that is, what if you were born in 1940? I'm not really talking about Stone Age, and I'm not talking about the advent of agriculture. I'm not really talking about the domestication of animals and others. I'm talking about just this 80 years ago, what was the fate of humanity uh, if you were born in 1940. See, the average life expectancy was 49 years globally, to the extent that in certain countries, the average life expectancy was only 26 years. So think of it that we were living a really short life, and even that was miserable, because the chances of dying with cholera and bubonic plague was about 30%. So it was so common that many people used to die in these pandemics and epidemics of very simple nature, which eventually turned out to be uh, extremely simple to be protected from occurrence. That we had suffered from shortage of basic food and faced hunger due to widespread famine at least twice in short lifespan. Look into the statistics that all around the world, including Western Hemisphere, the famine were very, very common, and that people were literally dying in numbers because of the shortage of food. And even minor surgeries would have really killed people due to post-surgical infections, because at that time, the antibiotics were either not developed or not common. So this was a world, just a world 80 years ago, where we had miserable, very short, bad life. And then how science has responded, and that is extremely important to communicate. And to communicate to the people that what has this entire world turned into, and that how do we really live a very satisfied, relatively happy life, because science and technology were able to answer most of these challenges which we faced during 1940s. So no widespread famine. If it is a problem, there is a distribution issue, not really a food insecurity issue per se. And that global life expectancy has reached to 76 years, and there are countries where life expectancy is about 88 years, especially in Japan and a few other countries in Scandinavia also. And that all simulation studies in human body tells us that human body is designed to live 100 years of a productive life, even longer. So many of you will actually live 100 years, even longer, a productive life, because it is now possible because of multiple reasons. The lifestyle you live in, the clean water, the access to hospitalization, the quality of food, the habitat in others, if we do not deliberately pollute it. And then, of course, you think of antibiotics. What an amazing development has been in the history of humanity, that these antibiotics and then antiviral compound are now saving the lives of millions of people. Within 11 months, 200 vaccine candidates were developed for COVID-19. COVID-19 was reported in November 2019. It was declared as pandemic in March 2020, and in September there was already a human clinical trials. By the end of December 2020, it was already commercially available in certain countries. And now you see, $5 vaccine can really help children to be fully protected from fatal disease. What is this? I mean, how it actually happened? And that is because science was able to answer most of these questions and meet the challenges which we faced 40 years ago. And today, if you look into the world, despite all these gloomy situation and the bad press, you're connected to everyone on the face of the earth without slight chances of miscommunication. You can literally connect to 7.8 billion people individually in real time. In real time, this is the kind of a communication which cannot really be thought just, it was just beyond the human imagination. And we are ready to land on Mars, life beyond the green planet. Mars is extremely busy place. According to the World Planetary Exploration Society, there are at least 13 different Mars ships which are moving around Mars and looking to the right space to settle, mainly in southern hemisphere of the red planet. Biotechnology is growing organs from own tissues. Regenerative medicine has proven to be extremely effective, that it is the journey towards eternity. So you would be able to go literally organs from nothing, and synthetic biology producing bacteria, cell factories. You can produce chemicals, pharmaceuticals, pigments, vaccines, polymers, in invisible friends of ours, which we can design, manipulate, and engineer according to our need also. So science will help us to meet the challenges of future as well. Biotechnology for food. Now we have 9.87 billion population, and this growing planet, population, there is a possibility and prospects of growing plants in 100% saline water in floating form. Sorry for spelling. 3D printing of organs, rejecting the organ rejection. Gene editing, you can correct the genetic disorder, metabolic disorders, genetic defects which we inherit from our parents and grandparents. Computers become extremely important. You know much better than me, many of you, that how this artificial intelligence has actually generated a whole new world in the most disruptive possible manner, that the whole society, the creativity potential, and everything has actually shaken to the bottom. Synthetic bacteria is designing, manufacturing, fuel, medicine, food, nanotechnology is redefining the world. I'm a chemist. And believe me, this very famous periodic table, one has to redefine. We used to think that gold is shining yellow metal, but if you reduce the size of gold into a nanometer scale, it is green in color. So, and the properties of gold is very, very different from what we see as ornament and also in certain industrial uses also. So the periodic table has to be redefined also, because nanotechnology has redefined the material and elements completely. So there's so much of development. And then we have seen unprecedented global challenge of COVID-19, where humanity was protected. According to WHO, so-called doomsday scenarios, if science wasn't there, if science was not there with the conservative statement of 1.7% of population dying from COVID-19, we're literally talking about hundreds of millions of people who could have really died of the pandemic. We came out of it almost unharmed, and that we responded because science was able to respond. The whole etiology of virus was known. We knew how much it survived on the surface. We knew how long it can transmit through aerosols. Whole regimes of distancing, masks, disinfections, repurposing of drugs, respirators, all were developed, and then eventually the vaccine were all developed within few months. Unprecedented development. Are we able to really tell people that today you exist because science was able to respond to an extremely important challenge which humanity has faced, unprecedented in the human history? We are not able to convey that. What was the what a loss of an opportunity where we were not able to tell people that what science can do. Think of it. Science would have been completely converted into the science if we had conveyed that message to them, that what science has done in this first 10 months of the pandemic. So our failures of communicating science has, so recognition, despite what science has done, it is the failure of communication, not the science. And it is therefore important that the science is communicated to everyone who matters. Science needs to be communicated to policymakers, to bureaucrats to journalists, to opinion leaders, to media personnel, and to even to the general public also, because eventually the constituency of science emerge out of the common people also. They need to be convinced that science is important and that science can really bring a lot of satisfaction, joy, and ease in their life also. So human ingenuity has to reach to the need of the people. It is very, very important that this fruit of science must really reach to the people, and that science must become basis of common culture. As I said, science is not a subject per se; it is a common human cultural norm. When people become uh, more tolerant, when people start uh, appreciating diversity, when people uh, have understanding of other people's point of view, when people can agree to disagree, and then understand the logic of it, people become more productive, society become more tolerant, society become more progressive. So it is part of culture, is not only in the scientific laboratories. Science is everywhere. Science is in human behavior also. And that because science brings rationality to the human behavior. And that research is funded by public money, creating constituency of science. We have huge amount of money spent on research. That need to be that is coming from creating a constituency of science. Pakistan is such an extremely unfortunate country where our science expenditure, gross expenditure on research and development is 0.00025, after three zeros. Imagine that we are not able to convince to anyone in this society that it is important to use the creativity potential of our own youth who are among the brilliant, bold, and beautiful. Science is now everyone's business. So it is extremely important that we should really make it a common human heritage and a common human endeavor. Cost of non-communicating science to people is huge, and we are already paying it. And we have seen it in recent pandemic. How many of our developing countries were able to do anything meaningful? Literally nothing. We have been on the fringes, and we would remain on the fringes if we do not really invest in our own, creating our own scientific culture, and of course, bringing society behind it so it becomes sustainable in real sense. And unfortunately, if we don't do that, there would always be people who will claim pseudoscience, who will deny the major scientific discoveries. That you just Google, you'll find many people would say that first landing in moon was just a fiction, and they'll bring lots of conspiracy theories, and you would find uh, people saying no one has ever landed on moon. So, and you would find, just GM product, which is so extremely important for meeting the human need. The population of 9.8 billion without GM food production would go really hungry. Is there are so much of anti-science or pseudoscience available. There is absolutely no scientific evidence that GM food is of any harm to anyone ever. But we find that everywhere, and that as a result of it, the cost of production of organic food or conventional hybrid seed is so expensive that become literally unaffordable for large population in the southern hemisphere. As a result, you find people dying because of food shortage and food insecurity. And then environmental degradation and global warming is a myth. You would still find people who deny these solid scientific report that the world is much warmer and that climate-related disasters are now almost double in the last 20 years, and that we are heading towards a tipping point of 2.5 degrees centigrade, that the world oceanic temperature and rise is very much there. The glaciers are melting. There's so much of it, and you would still find people, even leaders of different nations, who think that global warming is a myth. We are not able to communicate to them also that it is not pseudoscience. It is the real science that scientists have. Science, real science in number, has proven without any doubt that we are heading into the doomsday, that there is a world which would then become, at some point of time, a real threat to the human existence. And closer to home, I mean, we have seen that. I mean, think of a country where ecstasy has trapped us so much that for several days, the newspapers and television stations were running tar with water. Think of it, and the politicians, the anchor persons were blowing tribute to someone who was just completely fraud. Think of it, because our basic understanding of science and that failure of scientists to communicate this to people was just so glaring that we were not able to do that. And that in our own home, I mean, every day we see the incident of polio workers dying. Nobody recognizes great contributions of great warriors. The people were really dying in scores for our own children, because there are so many myths that polio is because of the sterilization of the population, that they want to reduce our population, that, huge. And these are unfortunate countries like ours, where we have polios and other diseases which could have been easily eradicated, because we were not able to communicate effectively that this is not the case, that these are not really truth, and these are just absolutely pseudoscience, and what you hear is not correct. So, and then of course I've seen Karachi was just completely, everything was just cut. This huge, beautiful trees all along the roads were just cut because somebody has really brought this idea that monocarpus is creating an environmental problem that's sucking water out of Karachi. As a result, Karachi was just completely devastated. Absolutely pseudoscience. And we have seen it in days it happened. And then, of course, if you want to treat your corona, number one, coronavirus is just a minor flu. It's not a major issue. And see who's saying that, the most scientifically advanced country in the world. And that this is not a disease which should make anyone worried about. And then, of course, you drink that and those, and then you would be careful. So this is all failures of science, and science is actually, the reason is that increasingly science is losing cultural understanding in Pakistan. When I was growing up, and I'm sure that some of the older people in the audience would also agree with me, that we used to have science page in newspapers. You don't really find that anymore because it's not interested, No one is interested in science anymore. It is gone, There used to be programs about science. There used to be programs about quizzes and others. Nobody wants to have these things also because this is extremely boring for them. And there's only 0.1% of the time of electronic media is dedicated to anything related to science and technology. And then tremendous misinformation. I mean, we fight not for information dissemination, but we're fighting against misinformation about science. So we have huge challenges. The first challenge is to somehow handle this huge issue of misinformation. And that anti-science lobby is very, very active. You would really find it everywhere. You can have, diabetic people are dying because every second person is giving them some herb or something like this, which can treat their chronic disease, and they need to stop their own medicine. This thing happening every day. So science and society, there is an organic relationship. We need to build that. We need to have this relationship uh, established in a way that when science flourishes, society flourishes. When society agrees, then science gets the support. Science and societies are two separate worlds, often far away from each other. But they meet each other in a very organic relationship. They need to be together and linked in a manner that science should understand the need of society, and that society should be able to appreciate the contribution of science and its importance. Society benefits from scientific discoveries and scientific values, while science can only be done through social, political, and general support. It can only happen when society is willing to support science. In the world of economic crisis, where there are so many other priorities, the science would only be able to survive when there would be a support and understanding of science. This is a triangle. We all understand that scientists should be able to communicate science to the people and also to the journalists. And journalists should be able to understand science, that they communicating science in a very objective manner without making sensational news, which are often not true. Science need to be communicated in easy to understand but objective manner, real truth, factual science. When scientists communicate science effectively, science thrives. But scientists are not taught. I mean, none of us are are trained to be a communicator. I never learned throughout my education even a single course of how to communicate effectively. So how would I be able to communicate? Science is increasingly interdisciplinary, very complex. Therefore, it is important that cross-discipline, we should be able to have internal communication, that we be being able to communicate the relevance and impact of ideas and discoveries uh, to everyone, and that we allow them to write better and more comprehensive research papers by effectively changing the language. Science is not only for the scientists, science is for everyone. And that is important, that we change the language. The language of science was developed during Galileo's time, when Church decided to prosecute because he was talking about sun center universe, and that was against the basic tenet of church belief at that time also. And scientists, as a result of it, have developed a language which only they understand, no one else understands. We need to come out of that paradigm, and we need to develop a new language which is effectively understood by everyone. And that science communication can really benefit science and society together. It is important that we understand, if it is anything important for us, science is what separates us from the Stone Age. We should not be here without science. And that the wise words of our Nobel laureate, Professor Abdul Salam, who said developing countries differ from developed countries, not only because they have less wealth and less capital, but they have less knowledge. And knowledge is all about understanding science and other important fields of human inquiry and ingenuity. This is the priorities of our leadership. Our leadership spent 276 billion rupees on building 27 kilometers of orange train, where our budget for science is 3 billion only per year, 0.0025% of the total GDP. These are our priorities, and if these are the priorities, what you see is the common sight everywhere. And these are the challenges which I would like to leave you as the homework. And these are the challenges which we face as a nation. Unprecedented population growth. Someone has to talk to people. Someone has to talk to people who matters. That with this level of human population growth, we will not be able to sustain and exist. We would have this huge mass of people can never be a nation with prosperity, and that Pakistan is among the most disaster-prone countries. We need to really develop disaster risk reduction and management strategies that need to be communicated to the people. Everyone should really know disasters are forthcoming. There are so many of them that how to respond to it. Instead of people dying in scores, we need to communicate that we are energy deficient countries and need to develop a different energy scenarios and a mix, and that we are increasingly becoming food insecurity, facing food insecurity issues, and that we are paralytically reliant on almost everything which comes from outside. All of these challenges has to be communicated, and a nation has to prepare by using science, technology, as well as other disciplines, because science alone is not enough for development. There is a whole paradigm. This everything developed, all disciplines, social sciences, languages, music, arts, and everything. They all are part of a greater knowledge base, and we need to work for not only developing their constituency, but also their standards and impact. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, sir, for such an exciting talk. Sir, may I have permission? Because there are a couple of participants who would like to ask questions.
Sure, please.
Thank you, sir. So Kashif Shabir Rana Saab wants to ask a question. Shanila, can we give him the mic, please, so that he can ask sir himself?
Forum is open from my side. Anyone can ask.
Okay, Kashif sir, Walaikum Assalam. Please ask sir questions.
Can you hear me, sir?
Kashif Saab, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sir, my question and observation is that jargons and complex theories in different fields of study create barriers. So can we have a simple communication of theories, laws, so that we and every person would be able to understand not only science, but other subjects as well? Can we have simple theories so that it would be interesting, sir?
Absolutely. You actually pointed out the key issue, because what is happening right now is, as I said, there is a historical context. Science and scientists were in great threat because of the reason that the religious domain of that time could not really understood the discoveries they were making, because many of them were just against the dogmatic religious beliefs. And as a result of it, a new language was developed which only they could understand or nobody else can understand. So you're absolutely right that we have actually came out of it, that we have to now communicate science in the easiest possible manner, taking out of these jargon and big words. And we should be able to communicate science with each other and with society in the same one language and a simple language, which can be done easily.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I also have a question. So
Sure.
you talked about the polio vaccine and how people were really skeptical about it. And the same goes with other theories, like you mentioned, the COVID as well. Sir, how can we address that? How can a scientist, through its communication, can address these kind of the misunderstanding and skepticism about the science and scientific things?
You see, scientists are effectively not communicators because they are not trained as communicators, but certainly they know science, and they have the capacity, if they develop this acumen and this understanding of how to communicate with people, then they can communicate science. At the same time, I think the media has a very, very important role to play. We need to have scientists trained in communication, and we need to have media trained in understanding the basic tenets of science, and effectively they can together communicate the importance of these issues, that we need to bring them out of myth, which is affecting the life of lots of people. So I think media has a very important role to play, and of course scientists have to play a very important role. They both have to learn the skills of the trade of each other and then work together to effectively communicate the importance of all these interventions which can save life and save people from lifelong diseases.
Thank you so very much, sir.
Ramla,
Sir,
if you allow
Ji,
me,
sir.
I can ask a question as well.
Ji, sir,
And
please.
also like to thank you very much, sir. And what a wonderful opening talk. As a matter of fact, you pointed out all those points which we are going to basically discuss and take up in a master class. Starting from the global challenges, you mentioned about global warming and its impact. You mentioned about COVID and how infodemics played a critical role initially in terms of acceptability of a vaccine. And there are so many challenges we have. We do have indigenous challenges in Pakistan regarding the polio. And now you also specifically highlighted about the biotechnology and its impact in synthetic biology. And now those are the agendas which we are going to basically show them with a hands-on experience how this subject can be made more excited, but at the same time linking it with the societal needs. That's what basically you have already mentioned, that how the society can benefit from this different disciplines and areas, so that that can be tightly linked and embedded in the society fabric, which is missing at the moment in Pakistan. So that's what we are trying to basically develop, a association and a linkage between science and the society, and the wonderful participants who are participating from a different background will be basically also enlightening us about their experience, and will be sharing their experience how to propagate and promote science in different corners of the country as well. And obviously, media does play a specific role. You already mentioned that media time on science is about 0.1%, and we're also facing a challenges. Yesterday, we faced a challenge in Jarawala. You can imagine that what is happening in our society. That's where basically we are now getting away from education, knowledge, and science. They're all linked together, and how the society fabric is basically deteriorating. So these all topics will be different sessions we will be highlighting, and obviously you have rightly pointed out all those agendas which will be basically uh, be carried out and demonstrated in front of all these participants with our other eminent speakers and scientists. So thank you very much again for sparing time, such a short notice, Iqbal Bhai. You've always been very, dear friend, and always been very supportive for the science as well. So we'll wish to have you on that opening day based on your availability, so that you can have an experience of talking to these mid-career and young, inspiring alumni as well. So over to you, Ramla, for any other talk. I just wanted to say thank you to him as well, and then
Thank you
we'll
so very
talk
much.
later.
Sir, may I have just one more time for one more question? There's one more participant who would like to ask you a question.
Okay.
Dr. Adnan, please go ahead and you can ask the question to sir. Dr. Adnan, are you here?
Let me introduce my
Hello,
colleague,
can you hear me?
Professor Dr. Khalid Mohammad Khan. He is a very eminent chemist. Invited him to join us. Yes, Adnan Saab, please. Adnan, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for such a wonderful talk. Thank you. I have a quick questions that I just want to know about the engaging the audience. So in the era of social media, like how can a scientist utilize a platform to effectively like engage the wider audience while maintaining the integrity of their research? Could you please?
You see, Adnan, what happened was that since I edit many scientific journals, we have decided in editors' conference that in every research paper, and that you see in most of journals now, is going to be increasingly more popular. The abstract of scientific research embedded in that particular research publication would be presented in few lines in the most simple language without compromising the quality of the content here. So I think that part is what need to be communicated to people. Number two, I think we need to have more engagement with society. For instance, every laboratory where science is conducted, or engineering and other fields also, we should have open houses. We should be able to bring young people, as you see in US, in other Western countries also. We should be able to bring young students, and even to housewives and families, to laboratories, and give them some time to see in real life what a wonderful work is conducted, how diligently and efficiently people are working with absolute commitment for scientific research, for solving their problems. So they're not always very uh, successful in solving many of these problems also, but collectively they were able to solve the problem, and they would able to. So I think this more engagement in any form is certainly a good way of doing it. Also, you see, your younger generation, vlogs and others can really be done, and effectively engaging society in easy to understand way what science is emerging, and what science can do to help to help solving many of these enduring challenges which we all face collectively together.
Thank you so very much. So there's
Thank you, sir.
another
Thank
comment.
you.
Everybody, Sam, we have one last question. So if you have time.
Sure, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Everybody wants to ask questions, but I promise this is going to be the last. Mia Bacha Saab wants to ask a question. Sir, over to you. You can open your mic and ask the question to sir. Directly.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Ji, Dr. Saab, very much. Thank you.
Okay, sir. It was wonderful sessions, and you really enlightened us with the wonders of science. And obviously, without science, we cannot move a bit, especially in this highly digital and technological era. But sir, actually, my background is actually from language and humanities, right? And actually, I'm working here as a nearly associate professor in the Department of English, Shahid Benazir Bhutto University, which is one of the distance university of the country. And so we plan to start some online thing. And so you know that actually in public sector university, launching online programming and especially bringing technology, that's a very Herculean task. So do you have some quick solutions that how can we introduce our social and humanities and especially language programs and through this digital medium?
Okay, so Dr. Saab, I would like to attract your attention on my last statement, and I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to spend a lot of time on it. I honestly believe that only developing one particular field, science, technology, or even English, we cannot develop. Development is a collective human development, societal development, which requires development in every sphere. So only science and technology can perhaps solve some of your technical problems. But problems are extremely complex and they have different facets. The societies can only develop when all disciplines develop together, including languages and social sciences. I do not really agree with any opinion of a lopsided development in which we spend a lot of money, resources, and attention only on certain disciplines and ignore the other. In my opinion, it is extremely important to have a balanced approach in which we should be able to develop every facet of human knowledge, and that we should be able to highlight that without developing all aspects of it, we will not be able to develop as a society and as a nation.
Sir, thank you so very much for your time. Sir, it was such an interesting and such an amazing talk. Sir, I hope आप हमें future में भी time देंगे and we'll get a chance to listen to you again. Sir, thank you so very much. It was an absolute honor to have you on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you very much the audience who have been able to join us. आप लोगों का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. Inshallah, next time we'll get more time from sir so that you can ask more questions from him. But for the participants, we have more webinars lined up. I'm sure you have received the schedule. So there are also going to be very interesting talk from the people who are in the field, who have the experience in different backgrounds. So I would encourage you to kindly join us in the other webinars as well. And that will be kind of like give you a kind of like a little taste about what the actual masterclass will be. So thank you so very much for joining. Shanila, I think that's it. We can end the meeting now.
So much, Dr. Saab, for the wonderful session. And no, I have not communicated about other sessions to
Oh,
the
sorry,
team
sorry, I'm
members,
sorry. I
rather
was
our STEM participants as of now. But I'll be sending the email shortly after the session. And those who couldn't make to attend today's session, we'll be sharing a recording link with you guys, and catch up with you in the next session. Thank you so much, Ms. Rabla, for
thank
coordinating
you so very much.
and for all all the effort. So looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Same here, same here. Thank you so very much. Thank you and good afternoon.